15 shoes from 11 different brands. Welcome to the best super shoes of 2024.
Yes, the whole TLC team are putting in the speedy miles and the marathon race days to test out every super shoe out there to basically help you decide if you need a pair and which ones will be right for you.
Plus, we'll be going through your top picks and also going through why you need a super shoe and what they actually are so that you are well informed before buying.
Let's get into it.
Right, James, let's start off at the beginning. What actually is a super shoe?
Okay, essentially a super shoe has two things. It has a plate, usually a carbon plate, but sometimes, as we'll get into later, it has different kind of plates, and the foam. It's this bit that makes it super. So there's a lot of foam, but it's hyper responsive and really quick.
Nice. Well, let's get into some examples now as well. We're going to go through lots of different shoes in no particular order, starting off with Adidas.
So Adidas have two monsters of a shoe, and starting off with one of the most bonkers ones, the Adidas Adizero Adios Pro Evo 1. I got a cheat code because it's written right there.
These shoes are phenomenal, but they do cost a whopping £450 or $500. Since they've been released in September 2023, Adidas athletes have been wearing them and they've had some phenomenal achievements, including 3 world records broken, 21 different victories, including across 7 different marathon major events. We've also had 4 national records, 4 course records broken, and an Olympic medal in these shoes as well.
I'm just in awe of the fact that Sarah remembered all of that. Yeah, I mean, the main thing is the cost. It is extortionately expensive, and if you want to run in these, they'll only be at their best performance for 1 marathon. So that's basically £10 per kilometre. So it really depends how much you want that PB.
Now, Adidas also have a new release, which is very, very new. They've got the Adidas Adizero Adios Pro 4s.
Yeah, and it has drawn inspiration from this incredible shoe, which can make it kind of difficult to spot which is which.
Yeah, the fit is improved, so that is something to bear in mind. If you did like the 3s, then the 4s is quite a different feel.
Yeah, and with the narrow fit, it does take a bit of getting used to, so if you are a wider foot, you probably want to get these tested out in a gait analysis before buying. While many people usually find Adidas shoes quite narrow, the reviewers of this actually found this one a bit more spacious and fit true to size. But you're gonna have to wait until January to buy a pair if you want to get your racing done. So, come marathon time in the spring, are we gonna see a lot of people wearing these?
Okay, next up, a personal favourite from me because this is my current marathon PB shoe. This is the New Balance SC Elite V4s.
Yeah, can we give a whoop whoop for a PB? Yeah, the reviewers that have taken these and put some serious mileage through will say this is kind of aimed more at kind of mid-packers, half marathon and marathon distance. So if you're lacing up for a 5K, this might not be the shoe for you, but it is super comfy. And what I'm blown away by is the amount of miles you put in. There is very little wear on the outer, which cannot be said for a lot of other super shoes. So big tick to New Balance.
Yeah, this was my kind of training workhorse shoe. I had a different colourway of it for race day, but yeah, the wear, really, really good. One thing to note though is just the fit at the front and the back. Definitely test out whether you would be suited to half a size up because the toe box is quite shallow at the front and some people do find their heel rubs a little bit as well. Right, so we've talked about what super shoes are, but now let's go through how we use them because the temptation is they feel great, I want to use them for every run.
Oh God, yeah, it's so tempting. But the thing about having the high stack height and that cushion is it's very unstable and isn't as durable as regular shoes. So they change your gait and the way you run as well. So the risk of injury if overused is there. So you want to be careful when you're using them.
Yeah, and if you are going to be using super shoes, then you want to make sure that you've got a nice daily trainer in your rotation as well that you can use for those easier miles and those daily miles. But then when you do introduce a super shoe, make sure that you start off by using it on a shorter run and then build up so that you can practice with it on your long run ahead of race day.
Yeah, nothing new on race day. But if you are super desperate to have a super shoe for your training miles, then there are now another new line of shoes coming out, which is the Super Trainer. So this is the Super Comp Trainer from New Balance. Essentially, it has the same technology that a regular super shoe would have, but it has the higher density foam, which makes it, less snappy, but still incredible for those miles. And that carbon plate is still there. Yeah,
a really great shoe for those faster miles and long runs as well. But now let's talk about another super shoe.
Okay, so next up is the OG super shoe, the Nike Alpha Fly, and these are the 3s which Jess say are a massive improvement from the 2s.
Yeah, Jess and Mo from the running channel both wore these to run the Berlin Marathon recently, where they both got incredible PBs. And they said they performed really well towards the end of the race, where you're struggling a little bit and you need your shoe to help you pick up the pace and continue towards the finish.
But this shoe highlights why Supershoes are really personal. So while Jess and Mo love these shoes for marathon distance, Andy feels he doesn't quite get what he needs from them for marathon distances, but said he would pick these for 5K, where he really is putting the speed into them.
Yeah, definitely something to think about when you are choosing a super shoe. You might buy one for the distance that you're training for and then completely pivot distances and think you need another one. But these are a very strong contender, and let us know, are you going to run in these? So we've also been testing out the Nike Vaporfly 3. Now this is more of a marathon shoe, but we've all found that it's a little bit disappointing compared to previous versions.
Yeah, where this was a marathon shoe, most people preferred this shoe for shorter distances. So while there have been improvements, it maybe isn't quite what people were expecting from this.
But hopefully more iterations will come out and they'll just get better and better.
I'm sure they will. Okay, so now we have a really powerful shoe coming from Asics. So this is the Metaspeed Sky Paris. And it is an incredible shoe that is a firm favorite here in the TLC office.
Yeah, definitely. They feel so light, super responsive, although potentially a little bit less stable, so maybe better suited to kind of 5K up to half marathon distances. And our very own Jess got a half marathon PB in these as well.
Yep, so half marathon and 5K PBs have been got in the office with these bad boys. Okay, so elephant in the room time. Supershoes come with a massive price tag, but how long do they actually last? Okay,
well, this might be bonkers considering just how much they cost, and this is going to be super dependent on shoe to shoe, but the average is roughly you will get 3 to 4 marathons, or kind of the Supershoes perform at their best for roughly the first 100 miles. This is kind of compared to 300 to 500 miles worth of use that you would get out of a normal shoe.
Which works out about £2 per mile for a pair of the shoes.
So it's definitely worth considering budgeting that in for your kind of racing calendar for the year. And when you get a pair of super shoes, see if you can track their mileage through apps like Strava or Garmin Connect or whatever you use.
Or be relays at me and have the same pair of Wave Riders. They've done about 16,000 miles now. But it is worth bearing in mind with super shoes, once they've gone through their best, you can still retire them and use them for speedy tempo runs. So just because they're not the best doesn't mean there's not still fantastic shoes to be using.
So Puma have a few different shoes in the running, pardon the pun.
Love it. Yeah, so these are the Deviate Nitro Elite 3s.
Yeah, they are super bouncy, but they also don't compromise on support either.
Yeah, and they look great, and they are one of the most reasonable that we're going to go through at under £200. But it is definitely worth trying these on the store, and if there's a treble in the store, even better. They do come up a little bit big, so you might want to go down a half a size, and they are recommended for neutral pronators. We also have the Puma Fast R Nitro Elite 2, which is a bonkers looking shoe.
Yeah, you can see that the carbon plate is completely exposed here, and you've also got a little bit of extra length at the front. Now that will take a little bit of getting used to, and you kind of need to settle into the way that the shoe adjusts your stride.
So they are one of the heaviest super shoes, but does the comfort make up for the weight?
Next we have the Saucony Endorphin Elite, which is a great racing shoe.
Yeah, it's usually recommended for longer distances, so marathon, half marathon distances, because it is really stable and super comfortable. And it is very lightweight and breathable because they've got cutouts like this.
Yeah, and Saucony have announced that next year, spring 2025, they will be bringing out a version 2. So it's going to be interesting to see the updates to this one. So you might have heard of people talking about illegal shoes, but what makes a super shoe illegal?
Well, most of you watching do not need to worry about it unless you're an elite athlete where there are very strict rules. So there's 40 millimeters of stack height, so this bit here, and there has to be one fixed carbon plate. And this one is a bonkers shoe. So this is the Puma Fast RB Rule Breaker, as it's otherwise known, and this has 58 millimeters of stack height and 3 plates. And it's basically designed to look bonkers. This is designed to do your longer, slower runs a bit easier, whereas this is just designed to look ridiculous and go very fast.
What happens when you rip up the rule book? But I want to know, are you counting a PB if you run it in an illegal shoe?
I mean, 100%, I'll take any PB that I can get it.
I'm not so sure when we get to stuff like this, but let us know in the comments, are you counting a PB if you run it in an illegal shoe?
Okay, so now we have a few in the running from Hoka. First up is the Rocket X2.
Yeah, these are quite often people's pick if they're doing triathlons where you might be running on kind of mixed terrain, and they are quite easy to get on as well compared to some of the other super shoes on the market.
Yeah, so if you're going to be running on any uneven terrain, this might be the super shoe for you, but it definitely feels a lot heavier than some of the super shoes we've had, so it's a balance you need to work out before picking your shoe, I reckon.
And then the newest shoe from Hoka is this, the Cielo X1.
Yeah, it is a lovely supportive shoe that can kind of handle any kind of paces. So if you are looking for that one carbon-plated shoe to rule them all for the training and the racing miles, this might be the shoe for you. And Tom just got his personal best in 10K in this shoe, so whoop, whoop.
Yeah, one thing to bear in mind though is they are quite wide at the front, so if you do have a slightly narrower fit, definitely try these on before buying, because the laces do start quite high up the shoe, so you can't quite pull in that tight fit. Speaking of the laces as well, they're very cool, they're quite reflective, but they're quite hard to do up, and they're not the longest of laces either, so another thing to bear in mind, but it is quite easy to swap your laces out if you love the shoe as a whole.
So you might have seen Andy wearing a pair of these bad boys in his training. This is the Kiprun KD900X LD.
Yeah, with a much lower price point, these were actually a really pleasant surprise when we tested them. With a lot of super shoes, when you've got them on and you stood still, you really feel like you're being kind of pushed forward and they feel a little bit rocky, whereas these feel nice and balanced, you're a little bit lower to the ground, but then when you do start to pick up the pace, they do feel really kind of plush, comfortable, but also speedy, and they do propel you forward as well.
Yeah, they're definitely one of the fastest of the shoes we've tested, and they massively punch above their weight in terms of price point. Let's go through who Supershoes are for.
Yeah, so it's definitely important to note that you should be looking to get into a good routine with your running and establish kind of a good form as well before you look at buying your first pair of Supershoes. As well, if you are just looking to kind of be a casual runner and you're not looking to get PBs and go to races and want to run really, really fast, then you probably don't need to fork out for a Supershoe either.
Yeah, and the thing to bear in mind is these are made to go fast. So the geometry is substantially different than a normal everyday trainer. So the faster you go, the more benefits you get from it. That's not to say you won't feel the benefits if you're wearing a super shoe at slower paces, but they are really made for speed. Right, what do you think of the Brooks Hyperion Elite 4?
Well, definitely since the Supershoes have first come to market, every single brand now pretty much has one, and I think Brooks really brings in something different. It feels far more like a traditional racing flat, but that might be what some people want. It's far more kind of stable and secure, it feels much lower to the ground, it doesn't have that kind of rocker mechanism that you get with some of the other shoes, but it's a completely different alternative. So if you are going to a shop to try on a few, definitely try on this as well, because you might be the person that it's perfect for.
Yeah, it uses a different foam, so it's got nitrogen injected foam, and it has an incredibly breathable upper, but you know, it's hard to compare it to the much bigger hitters in the running market, but it is still a great shoe.
Now for a very cool but very different looking shoe, the On Cloudboom Strike LS.
Yeah, it isn't wildly accessible, but the LS stands for Light Spray, which is their 3D technology, and essentially it fits like a sock, but it's very much part of your foot, and it is a bizarre but amazing experience to put them on and actually run in them.
Yeah, it feels like the material should rip, but it actually is super strong. One thing though that we would say is potentially size up half a size, because it's a bit of a workout actually getting the shoe on, and the material isn't that stretchy, so it might take a little bit of getting used to. Right, we've gone through a few different shoes now, but let's go through how do you know which shoe is the right one for you?
Okay, well you could get proper nerdy and go into a lab and measure your metabolic efficiency, which is essentially which shoe uses the energy stores you have most efficiently.
Yeah, that's quite a complicated way of doing it and would take quite a lot of time, but it is a good way. The other way is just to simply go into a shop and try them on for yourself. All of these different shoes that we've gone through will feel different in kind of where you feel the carbon plate pushes you forward or how you feel the foam reacts to your running style. So being able to get them on, walk around, or even some shops will let you hop on a treadmill and feel what they're like when you're running is such a good way of working out which brand and which shoe is best for you.
Okay, and the final shoe, which has a special place in the TRC office, it is the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 2.
Yeah, so these are definitely a bit of a Marmite situation. You're either gonna love or hate these. The design and the shape is so unique that it's either gonna really work for you or it might not. But Andy raced a 1K in these and did super well. My previous marathon PB was also in the previous iteration of these shoes. So if they work, they really work. So that is the scoop on Supershoes.
Yeah, so if you're heading out for a PB or you're just curious, now more than ever, there is a super shoe out there for you.
But you might be interested to know what the running channel community picked as their favourite shoe. So we asked you to vote, we got so many responses, but the overall winner was these, the Adidas Adizero Adios Pro 3s, which is another important point. Obviously, we've gone through all of the best super shoes that are the latest iteration, but quite often you can go one version back and bag yourself quite a good deal because they might be on sale or at a slightly cheaper price point.
Yes, and then the TLC pick, it was hotly debated, shoes were thrown, but the winner was the Puma Deviate Nitro Elite V3. It is just a great shoe that works for all the different types of runners we have here at TLC, and it's just a great looking shoe.
Really, really nice, but this was kind of our long list of shoes that we were fighting over.
So if you enjoyed this video, go and watch us as we discuss all the shoes that are out there in our best running shoes video. Hello, next video calling.